Hey, good morning, everybody. Current time looks like we are right at 1:02 this morning. We are tracking a couple of severe thunderstorms and some tornado warnings now moving into the area. These tornado warnings do include portions of Delaware and Adair counties. Those two areas of concern have produced actual tornadoes. The purple polygon you see right there, that's the Weather Service telling us that is a confirmed tornado on the ground. The one to the north in Delaware County that will inevitably be moving into Benton County, it was purple, it was confirmed. We saw debris on radar giving us the confidence to suggest that is in fact a confirmed tornado, but that debris signature has since dropped off. So now we're back to a standard base tornado warning. Nonetheless, Doppler radar indicated rotation coming out of the leading edge of that line indicates that a tornado could redevelop at any moment. Looks like we still have debris coming into the Adair County area. That's a confirmed tornado warning showing up there in purple. In addition to those areas of spin on the leading edge of these lines, you have some really strong damaging straight line winds. This bowing segment here is a big push of wind. We're talking damaging straight line winds 70 to 75 miles per hour, potentially coming out of that leading edge of that line. So whether it's the straight line wind potential, whether it's the rotation potential, you have reason to go ahead and be concerned. These storms initially will be impacting northwest Arkansas, currently impacting northeast Oklahoma, but you can see that line does extend as far south as Interstate 40, well back off towards the west. That will be tracking into portions of the river valley with time. It's not going to get there as quick as northwest Arkansas, but certainly some severe thunderstorms likely going to be moving through a good chunk of the area. What we'll do now, we'll take a closer look into some of these cells. What we'll find are that that leading edge of that line is consistently producing some very gusty winds. What we're finding there is 60 to 70 is common for many of us. But at times it very well could be peaking up even a little bit higher than that. When you go into the wind velocities here, you also notice that these areas of rotation are generally brief in nature, could very well potentially produce a tornado, but then it drops off relatively quickly. Nonetheless, a tornado potential is going to continue with us here this morning. Current time is 1:05. Looks like my clock out there might be a minute ahead. Nonetheless, some severe thunderstorms now getting ready to move into the area. Brand new severe thunderstorm warning in effect for Washington and Benton County. You can see that now showing up on the warning screen right there. What we find with that, that's primarily going to be for those 60 to 70 mile per hour straight line winds that are going to be moving into the area with time. You probably have a few minutes if perhaps you want to get out and about, bring in some loose lawn furniture if you just happen to be up early here with us this morning. Maybe you want to move the car into the garage, not necessarily a bad idea. Could be some pockets of hail embedded within this cell, but generally speaking, this is primarily going to be a damaging wind potential for a lot of us. Two tornado warnings, two areas of rotation that have developed on the leading edge of that specific that line that's moving our direction, and that's going to continue to be a problem for us, likely into the wee morning hours as it continues to track off towards the south and east. Yes, it is weakening slowly, but it's not necessarily weakening to a degree in which we have a lot of confidence that we're going to avoid severe weather altogether. Unfortunately, doesn't appear to be the case for many of us. Right now, we take a live look outside, and you can notice when those cameras are pointed back off towards the northwest, you can occasionally see a decent amount of lightning and thunder, and that's going to be increasing with time. It's probably going to wake a lot of folks up over the next couple of hours. Let's do this. Let's go back into first our cell that's going to be moving into Adair County. This is the one that we believe might still be on the ground. And the reason we believe that, and it's not in Adair County right now, but it is moving closer and closer into Adair County. Here's the community of Christie. Here's Stillwell. The storm is still closer to Tahlequah. It's now passed off to the east of Tahlequah there. When we look at the debris signature, is there still one there? And there certainly appears to be a bit of a debris signature. As the radar sees it, what you would find is right there, there's a little bit of a signature that says, hey, there's something up here that's not rain and it's not hail, which means it shouldn't be there at all, right? It also co-locates exactly with where you would expect to find the rotation. When we look at our velocities, that's how we track rotation in the cell. It's actually a pretty pronounced signature right there. So when those two deep pieces of data are matching up, you know that you probably have, in fact, a tornado on the ground. With that said, let's do this. Cody up in the booth. Let's go ahead and let's go on TV here real quick. Okay. For the folks on streaming, we're going to go ahead and go over to Channel 5 as well. Our coverage will continue on both 5 News Plus, our free mobile apps, Facebook, YouTube, and of course on 5 News. Right now, severe thunderstorm warning is all we've got in northwest Arkansas, but these 2 tornado warnings with time are going to be tracking our direction. Let's hope their rotation can weaken or fizzle out. That's likely something that may or may not happen at this point. A lot of energy out there for these storms to tap into. They have been producing severe weather all the way from West Oklahoma through now our neck of the woods. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and do that. Standing by to go on to Channel 5.
Live on 5 News and streaming on 5 Plus, this is a Weather Impact Alert.
All right, good morning, everybody. 5 News Chief Meteorologist Skot Covert here, tracking 2 tornado warnings, a number of severe thunderstorm warnings. Let's go straight to the 2 tornado warnings first. These are going to be in northeast Oklahoma. Delaware County, that's 1 tornado warning. Area of rotation near Colcord. A second area of rotation now east of Tahlequah, getting ready to move into Adair County. The one moving into Adair County, we do have a debris signature, which would indicate to us that we likely have a tornado in progress as of this moment. The tornado itself, the debris itself, right on the county line there, moving into Adair County. So if you're in, let's say, Westville, Stillwell, you're going to be in the path of this storm. We'll go in a little bit closer here, and what you find is it's going to be somewhat rain-wrapped. It's a pretty decent signal of some rotation right to the west of Christie, near Eldon. When you look at the debris tracker, it stands out. It's pretty obvious. There's likely a tornado on the ground right here, just to the north of Eldon. That's moving almost due east. That's going to be following the State Highway 62 there, moving into the Christie community. If you're there, you have an observed tornado likely right now producing at least some degree of damage with some pretty strong rotation as well. In fact, that's one of the stronger signals we've seen over time this morning. It is continuing to show signals that if I'm in Adair County, specifically between Christie and Westville, anywhere there along Highway 62, I would certainly be taking my tornado safety precautions there this morning. We'll do this. We'll zoom back out. We'll go into our Delaware County cell. That one specifically is closing in on Benton County. It's not there yet. You got some time if you're in Benton County to go ahead and take those tornado safety precautions. Generally speaking, these haven't been moving super quick, which is going to give you some time to make a smart decision. Go ahead, take those precautions that you know how to do and you do all the time, right? It's all part of a Boeing segment of storms that are moving out of northeast Oklahoma that are also packing some straight line winds with them as well. The rotation was near Colcord. We'll go back into it here in Delaware County. What we'll find is that's going to be moving into a good chunk of Benton County here relatively soon. So this is going to be north of 412. More than likely, that rotation is probably going to be right here where that notch is. That's going to be closing in on Arkansas 53. When we look at the actual rotation itself, the wind velocities, kind of a messier signature. We're looking out of the Tulsa radar right here, but you do find where those yellows, and there's a little bit of a green signature right there. That's where that rotation would be, right in this general vicinity. Could be a secondary area of rotation just to the south of Colcord as well. All of this tracking east. That's going to be running almost parallel with Oklahoma's 116. So we're several miles north of 412, but nonetheless tracking somewhat parallel, pretty much right on top of the Arkansas-Oklahoma state line at this point. While folks in Benton County are not currently under a tornado warning, I would suspect that you might very well be in the near future, unless this thing weakens quickly, which is a possibility. Let's hope that is in fact the case. But right now, a good signal for some rotation here. This is what has prompted the tornado warning. But when I look a little further towards the south, just to the east of Kansas, right there along 412 between Kansas and Siloam Springs, there is another weak, broad area of rotation that's not strong enough to prompt a tornado warning in of itself, but certainly an area of concern nonetheless. And that's unfortunately, when you look up and down this line, you're going to be finding lots of different little eddies. That's what I like to call them, little areas of spin, little pockets of rotation that will develop. It's kind of like playing whack-a-mole with these cells. One will pop up, it'll fizzle out, another one will develop somewhere up and down the line. Along the leading edge where you have these bulges here, that's probably going to be a good area to expect some really strong winds, 60 to 70 miles per hour. That in of itself can cause a little bit of damage. At times it could exceed 70 miles per hour, which actually happened just back towards Tulsa. So in recent history with this cell, that certainly continues to be a possibility for us. We take a look from the Fort Smith radar, getting a pretty similar picture there. That leading edge now moving into western Benton County. Winds are going to be picking up from Siloam through Gentry, Gravette, Decatur. That tornado warning has now fallen off. That rotation there in Delaware County seemingly has weakened. With that said, we still have a tornado warning for Adair County, and not only is it a tornado warning, it's a confirmed tornado on the ground based off of the fact that radar is seeing debris continued to be lofted into the air just to the east of Eldon, west of Christie. You look at the debris tracker, well, it's not as pronounced as it was. That could potentially be some good news. Let's go into the rotation. It was pretty strong a second ago. You go into the rotation, and it's also a little bit more messy. So you kind of see the idea behind calling it like a whack-a-mole setup. It kind of just pops off, and that continues to be the trend until the storms just entirely weaken overall. Certainly a pocket of rotation right here. It's not as pronounced as it was even just a couple of scans ago. We can look at the rotation a little bit differently, and you just find, yeah, a weak pocket, broadly speaking, right there along 62. At times there were actually a little bit of hail with that cell. I'm not seeing any out of that right now. Maybe we had, maybe you would say quarters coming out of that near Eldon. Okay, penny size, a little bit smaller than that. Still though, Doppler radar indicated rotation is there. It's going to be moving towards the east near Peavine. We're likely moving just to the north of Rocky Mountain. Stillwell is technically included in this tornado warning. A rotation may pass just to the north of you. If you live anywhere between Stillwell and Westville along Oklahoma 59, you're in the path of the storm. It is producing damage, has produced damage as it moves into Adair County. So it's certainly one of those situations that you're going to want to take seriously as this storm approaches you. We'll go back to radar mode. And what we find when you look at just the rain mode here, broad perspective is most of these storms are going to impact northwest Arkansas first. But as you notice, that line extends now all the way south towards Interstate 40. With time, that is going to be progressing off towards the east. The strongest portion of this line remains pretty much northwest Arkansas. In fact, you don't even find any warnings towards the south. That's not to say this might not pulse up. That's not to say it might not organize. But the odds are going to be a little bit higher north of Interstate 40. I'll show you the watches. Well, I'll just tell you, it's going to be northwest Arkansas, Benton, Washington, Carroll, Madison, Franklin, Crawford counties, as well as Sequoia, Adair, and Delaware under a severe thunderstorm watch. That goes until 4 a.m. So it's not even a tornado watch. It's really going to be the winds that are a primary concern going into this morning. Now we'll watch these tornado warnings as they pop up and pop off. You'll notice that just went to red. That is now the Weather Service telling us, hey, we're no longer finding debris. We kind of just walked through that a few seconds ago, right? With that said, you notice that little notch right there now moving into Christie? That's a pretty classic eddy. That's a pretty classic signature that you might be trying to see something start to rotate just a little bit. You go into the rotation, the winds or wind velocities, and you'll probably find a little bit of a spin right here. That's where we could see something try to spin up, although generally speaking, that's not the strongest signal we've seen this morning. It was much stronger about 4 to 5 scans ago. Had some rotation indicated with Doppler radar. It also had debris indicated by Doppler radar, and we're not seeing debris anymore, and the rotation is starting to come down at least just a bit. Let's hope that trend continues. Right now between Sanders, Christie, Strawberry Spring, that's where this rotation is moving right now. It's a little bit more broad right along Highway 62, and it's been running almost parallel with 62 north of Eldon over towards Christie for the last couple of scans. We go a little bit closer. Not finding a lot more of these roads to pick up on, but nonetheless, this is where it would likely be at this time. So what we'll do, we'll zoom back out just a bit. We'll get an idea of where this storm is tracking to. In fact, that warning was moving for, let's see here, how quick was this guy moving? This is moving east at 45 miles per hour. So east at 45 miles per hour. It's going to take that into western Washington County with time. Let's do this. Let's go keep zooming out just a little bit. We'll track just the area rotation first, and then we'll come back and we'll work through the winds. Rotation, of course, going to be the most pressing matter we've got to deal with. We can work through those winds here shortly as well. When we track that area of rotation at 35, almost off towards the east. Let's take it all the way over to I-49. Puts it at Christie pretty much in the next 10 minutes. Westville at 137, Summers Community at 144, Lincoln at 150, Bobkid Lake there in Prairie Grove 156, Battlefield State Park, Prairie Grove, broadly speaking, right around 2 o'clock this morning. Hogeye at 205, Farmington at 208. Expected at Drake Field there near Greenland, south of Fayetteville, 214, and eventually into downtown Fayetteville, let's say near the campus there around 215. That's assuming it doesn't speed up, slow down, or change its direction. But generally speaking, I don't expect it to really do either of those things. If anything, and maybe it slows down just a bit, gives you a little bit of extra lead time to go ahead and take those tornado safety precautions. But that tornado continues to show some rotation. I don't think we have a tornado on the ground as of this moment. I do think we've got some strong rotation, and that's going to continue to be a concern for us. You go look at some of the cameras out there just trying to check on lightning. You can see a little bit on the Bentonville camera. I've got that pointed towards the northwest through the Delaware County cell. Not seeing much from the Fayetteville area. We'll go back to live radar. Severe thunderstorm warning continues for Benton, Washington County. The reason this warning's been issued as these cells move into western Benton County. Doppler radar indicates we've got 60 to 70 mile straight line winds moving into the area, and that will do just enough damage as a weak tornado. So we want to take all of it pretty seriously, whether it's red or orange. Certainly some severe storms nonetheless moving into the area, likely through Gravette, let's say Decatur, Gentry, into Siloam Springs. Those winds are probably picking up. Once the winds pick up, you're going to see some intense rain, probably a lot of lightning, probably a little bit of thunder out there. That's moving towards Bentonville and Rogers. Give that in the next 10 to 15 minutes, and it'll be moving through your neck of the woods as well. When you work your way down this line, what are the things you want to look for just on the rain mode? You want to look for those little hooks right there. Those are those little eddies where you can get some of that spin-up rotation to develop a quick tornado. Generally, they're quick, but they're tornadoes nonetheless, and that's the reason why we got to track these so closely. Sometimes they can develop between radar scans, and oftentimes they can dissipate just as quickly. I think that was probably what happened east of Tahlequah as it moved over into Adair County. Did probably produce a brief tornado based off of the debris that we saw lofted into the atmosphere, but it likely lifted relatively quickly. Unfortunately, debris nonetheless indicates there's probably some damage out there nonetheless. We can work our way a little bit further towards the south. Storms now moving into the Webbers Falls, Gore Community, and western Sequoia County. Those are not severe, but there's probably some gusty 40 to 50 mile per hour winds likely moving through western Sequoia County right now. All of that, of course, tracking almost east, southeast perhaps at times. So we'll bring a lot of that into Crawford, perhaps portions of Sebastian, a good chunk of Sequoia, and even northern LaFleur County will initially see a lot of those storms out there. We'll go back area-wide so you can get an idea of the big picture that's tracking our direction. Here's the worst of the storm where those warning polygons have been issued, but you notice everything back off towards the west. There's a lot more that's developed south of Tulsa, west of Tulsa. A lot of this activity is going to continue from OKC, running almost east-southeast. That's going to be moving our direction as well. The good news is, if there is any right now, none of this is severe. Bad news is these polygons, these boxes right here, those are flood warnings ongoing. A lot of rain coming out of these. It's not going to take much more rain on top of everything we've seen in recent weeks and months to produce additional flash flooding. New tornado warning now issued for Washington County as well as portions of Adair County. This is the same storm that has produced rotation now most of Washington County, with the exception of broader Fayetteville, Springdale not currently included. However, Lincoln, Prairie Grove, West Fork, and Westville now included in this new tornado warning. This is going to run until 1:45 this morning. Current time here is 1:21. You'll notice that little hook right there very well continues to maintain itself when you look at the wind velocities. Here's where that rotation would be spinning up right now. We'll go a little bit closer, and then we'll put some more tracks on this to give you an estimated time of arrival. Rotation right here, just to the west of Highway 50. This is going to be 59. Pretty much right on top of Christie right now. Christie, Strawberry Springs, Adelaide, I believe. That's a new one for me. Adelaide, Strawberry Spring, Christie, Sanders. Broad area of rotation right here, but it's consistent and persistent. And that's why that new warning has been issued downstream, which does include a good chunk of Washington County. Fayetteville's not currently included in it, but Lincoln, Prairie Grove, West Fork is. Winslow also included in this new tornado warning. Right now we've got Doppler radar indicated rotation. I'll tell you with that new scan that just came in, it might be picking back up just a little bit. It's looking a little bit tighter than it was. When you go into the debris tracker, not seeing anything right there right now, but the way that's bowing out and then notching back into that is a little concerning for me. That signature right there, you can kind of see that hook. That indicates to me the storm may be trying to get its act together once more. It did produce a tornado not far from Tahlequah, likely to the east of Tahlequah. Lifted. To me, it looks like it might be trying to pick back up. It's moving east at about 50 miles per hour. So what we'll do is we'll put a track on this to give you an idea of exactly when this is going to be moving into your neck of the woods. I'm going to kind of draw it a little broadly here, get more people included. So that would put it at Dutch Mills at 130, Summers at 133, Lincoln around 135. Let's say Prairie Grove around 145 this morning, West Fork at 150, Woolsey at 152. That's estimated times of arrival based off current speed and trajectory. I think it's doing a pretty good job out there, so that gives you an idea of when you can expect the area of rotation to move into your neck of the woods. Of course, that's going to be followed by some pretty gusty winds, a lot of rain, more than likely, maybe even mixing in with just a little bit of hail. That rotation, I want to go back to it here real quickly. That was actually pulsing back up. It makes me a little bit concerned that that might be trying to tighten up. No changes with that data that's just come in right there. But you notice that little bulge right there. Number one, that's going to be a good push of some winds coming out of the leading edge of that cell. But where you start to see that little eddy continue to get more and more crisp and defined, that would tell us there very well could be trying to something trying to spin up right there near Westville. If that is the case right now, that's probably going to be happening just to the south of Westville. We'll go in really tight right here. I can give you some streets, some crossroads. It's going to be along Highway 59 and 62, right there at that intersection of 59 and 62 in Adair County. So we're talking just to the west of Summers. This is going to be in Summers in the next couple of minutes. Right here on top of the green community is where that rotation continues to be. And it hasn't really weakened any at all. If anything, the overall storm structure is somewhat increasing. And I would tell you that there's probably not a tornado on the ground right now, but I think this storm may be trying to produce another one. It has produced one over the last 20 minutes back towards Tahlequah. Of course, I've mentioned that to you. I say that again just to point out that it very well could be trying to just restructure itself. These things often do. Drop a tornado, it'll lift, it'll drop another one. That's pretty normal in these storm life cycles, and that may be what we're dealing with out there right now. In fact, when we look at this rotation area-wide, that's the only one we've got right now. We initially did have some rotation moving out of Delaware into Benton County. Right now, that is entirely just straight line winds, 60 to 70 mile per hour straight line winds, closing in on Bentonville, Rogers, River Valley. We are in good shape for the time being. We'll watch all of this track into your neck of the woods. We'll have to stay focused right now on Washington and Adair counties. That's where we have 2 tornado warnings. It's for the same storm though. Going back in, I want to see every scan that comes in, see if anything's changing. Structure-wise, it's still looking the same. When we look at the wind mode, that rotation's not as pronounced as I would expect it to be based off of just the structure of the storm alone. Not seeing anything in the debris tracker that would indicate to me that we have a tornado on the ground. That's the good news there. Rotation is continuing. It's going to be just to the east of Christie. We go back to the wind mode and I'll be able to pinpoint really where that is likely going to be for you. So we're talking in this area right here. That's where that rotation is. It is moving towards Summers and eventually is going to come into the Lincoln, Prairie Grove community. Let's hope that it actually continues to be disorganized. Right now, that rotation is not as tight as it was, but the one thing that I keep noticing and I keep coming back to, because we've seen this in recent events, especially I'm thinking about Van Buren a couple of weeks ago, the structure starts to pick up and then the rotation follows behind that. So you start to see this little eddy, this kink right here, not far from Christie. We're just to the east of Christie, south of Westville. When that starts to kind of come more crisp, when you start to see that little eddy, that little kink, that hook, whatever you want to call it, when you start to see that begin to develop, the rotation is often going to follow it. And once it gets its organization together, and then you can start to see that spin increase. I'm hoping that's not the case, but it is something that we have seen multiple times this storm season alone. And so I suspect that may be trying to happen right now. That tracks into Summers, Lincoln, Prairie Grove. Washington County is going to be next in line for this storm. Right now, the rotation itself is about 2 miles west of the Oklahoma-Arkansas state line. It's going to be south of 62, but only by a little bit. And it's almost running parallel and has been almost running parallel with 62 for quite some time. We'll look at a different way of seeing some of that rotation. Yeah, it's going to be right in this general vicinity. It's right now, not the strongest, but rotation nonetheless. Go a little bit closer into this. The Barron community, right along 59. This is generally a product that it's often 2 to 3 minutes behind. So I would expect that blue blob where the rotation is, it's just a more simple way of seeing it, is probably going to be just a little bit off towards the east, closing in on the Arkansas-Oklahoma state line. We'll go back to rain mode. We'll zoom out quite a bit to get our bearings here, but I do believe this is going to be your area of rotation east of Christie, south of Westville, north of Peavine right now. I'd like everybody in this morning polygon to be in your tornado safe locations right now, especially if you're in Summers or Lincoln. Area of rotation is going to be tracking a little bit closer to you in the next couple of minutes. Winds are picking up along the state line right there. That old warning polygon has been allowed to expire, but the new one, which encompassed the entire area, really remains in effect right now. Washington County, a good chunk of southern Washington County is included in this tornado warning. Fayetteville, Springdale, is not. Tinytown is not included in this tornado warning. This is going to be for the south of Fayetteville there, and that is going to certainly include a good chunk of I-49 between Winslow and, let's say, the Greenland exit right there. Greenland, I believe, is included in this tornado warning. I know it's not something you folks want to hear after what you went through a few weeks ago, but nonetheless, you are included in this tornado warning, as is Prairie Grove, West Fork, Morrow. Looks like probably maybe portions of Farmington, maybe. We're going a little bit closer. I went too close. Okay, no, south side of Farmington. Most of Farmington is in fine shape, but closer you get to Prairie Grove, you're definitely going to be included in this warning. So hopefully that helps you there just a little bit, get an idea of your bearings. I want to look back up into the northern section of this line. We've got some intense winds moving into Benton County right now. I think for the most part, that's all it's going to be. I don't find any kinks. I don't find any eddies. I'm not seeing any little hooks or notches right there. We'll double check just to be on the safe side, checking our wind velocities. Not seeing any rotation up and down that line, but certainly an intense thunderstorm nonetheless moving through Benton County. It is severe warned. That warning is going to continue for the next little bit. Expect some damaging straight line winds to be coming out of the leading edge of that cell. Maybe a pocket or two of some small hail. Generally, though, the hail is not even large enough to become severe warned. So that's primarily wind-driven severe thunderstorm warning out there for us this morning. Looks like that rotation is going to be right now on top of the Arkansas-Oklahoma state line. I'll tell you, it's not very organized. I think it is certainly becoming weaker with time. That's certainly a trend we want to continue seeing. Right now, the warning is going to continue. However, that warning is going to continue for, I believe, 15 more minutes unless the Weather Service deems it acceptable to go ahead and cancel early. Right now, that rotation has been weakening probably over the last 15, 20 minutes. I'm feeling better about it, but I don't think that's not me saying it's time to go ahead and leave the closet or leave your safe location. I think you probably ought to stay put just for a little bit longer. Let's see if this does continue to weaken with time. And go into the debris tracker just to make sure nothing's trying to pulse up for us and not finding any debris out there. 1:45 this morning is when this warning is set to expire. You can look at velocities and rotations a couple of different ways. Again, this product's always a little bit behind, but it tells us the rotation wasn't necessarily the strongest. When you look at it just on the wind mode, this is really the best way to assess how's that rotation doing. Is it strong? Is it weak? Is it pulsing up? Is it pulsing down? To be honest, I'm not even seeing a strong rotation signal there at all. That's probably going to be looking out of the Tulsa radar. It's the Fort Smith radar, so we can actually bump over and we'll take a look at it out of the Tulsa radar just to get an idea of if it looks any differently, and it really doesn't. It really doesn't look much differently from either perspective. And that's another piece of evidence that maybe this thing is, in fact, trying to weaken up just a little bit. I think the wind threat's certainly going to continue. And again, it's, damaging winds or a weak tornado, either way. I think the key is damage is damage. Looks like we got a ham radio report of a lowering and possible funnel. Would have been 2 miles southeast of Westville. 2 miles southeast of Westville. So it looks like there very well could still be a lowering with it based off of velocity. That's kind of acceptable. I think I think that makes sense. But a lowering doesn't necessarily mean tornado, right? It could just mean a wall cloud, which is important. It's certainly one of those things that you want to look at closely. I'm not seeing strong rotation there. Now moving into southern Washington County, that's our area of concern. We've got numerous other severe thunderstorm warnings with this cell, especially across Benton, all of Washington County, portions of Delaware and Adair County. An intense thunderstorm, one area of rotation that developed on the leading edge of that. Now all of this is moving east-southeast. River Valley is going to be quiet for a little bit longer. It's going to take a little bit more time for that cell to, or that storm complex to dive towards the south and east, although that is expected to be the trend over the next several hours. Warning is being updated here, and the reason it's flashing and being updated is that the threat has now exited Adair County. So if you're in Adair County, I can give you the all clear when it comes to the rotation and the tornado potential. With that said, you've probably still got some pretty intense winds likely moving through the area. So for the folks in Adair County, you were in the all clear. However, if you're in Washington County, anywhere between the state line, let's say Summers and Lincoln towards West Fork, you probably do want to stay in your safe locations right now. Fayetteville's not included, Springdale, Tawnytown, Johnson, not included in this tornado warning. This is going to be for Greenland and points towards the south, pretty much near the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. Not quite technically, but for all practical purposes, I think that's a fine way of saying where the threat potentially is. We're going a little bit tighter here. This is your tornado warning. Morrow, Prairie Grove, Greenland, Winslow included in it. When we go back and look at the Doppler radar indicated rotation, actually let me back out here. Let's do that. Let's look at another little scan to come through there. Crawford County, you're going to get a severe thunderstorm warning more than likely at some point as that cell finally comes into your neck of the woods. Right now, I think we're closing in on 62. I think this rotation, if it's there and it's weak and it has been following 62 for quite some time, let's go ahead and take another look at that. Yeah, perhaps a weak area of rotation. Boy, it's broad, and that's the key takeaway. To get a tornado, it needs to be a little bit tighter, needs to be a little bit faster spin, and right now, I think the signal for that is just relatively weak. Wouldn't entirely rule it out, but I think that's a weak signal. So I hope that gives you a little bit of comfort, but I still think it's wise to go ahead and stay in your safe locations for us this morning. When you look at just the warnings alone, here's going to be your tornado warning. Orange, of course, your severe thunderstorm warning. I want to check the hail. At times we've had a little bit of hail with this specific cell and really not seeing much of an issue there right now. We'll take a look at the debris tracker. It's one of the things we want to check off in these types of situations. These types of tornadoes that develop in these squall lines are often very brief in nature. They can drop a tornado really quickly. You might see a debris signature for a minute, 2, 3, 4 minutes tops. And then often is the case the tornado lifts. And that's what's happened with this cell. Dropped a tornado between Tahlequah and Eldon. And then it lifted pretty quickly. But it had a pretty pronounced debris signature on it for quite some time. So just want to make sure that that's not happening again. Right now, all indications point to me that this thing not as strong as it once was when it prompted the tornado warning. Rotation nonetheless. We're on top of Lincoln right now. I've talked to the Lincoln Fire Department out there, those firefighters. I know they're very well aware of these things. They've gone through a couple of them already this severe storm season, so I'm sure that they're going to have some eyes in the sky here right this morning, and if they find something, they'll be sure to let us know. Cane Hill, Lincoln, Prairie Grove, you're next in line for the storm. Really, the storm is pretty much on top of Lincoln. Should there be any rotation, by the time you hear my voice, this gets to the airwaves, rotation would be on top of Lincoln. Here's going to be Lincoln right here. Here's Kirk Lane Road. State Highway 45, here's 62. This is going to be Weddington Blacktop Road, North Weddington Blacktop Road. just for some context, this is where the rotation would generally be, along and just north, barely, of Highway 62. You get a little bit closer into the Lincoln community. High Ocean Road. This is going to be Old Cincinnati Road. We'll go a little bit closer if we can get a few more of those to pop up. It's going to be Holt Road, East North Street, Sugar Hill Road, Northwest Avenue, Holt Road again, East Adams Street, perhaps as far south as the 62 corridor. Broad area of rotation. It's possible that there is a wall cloud with this cell. It's possible there's a little bit of a funnel, perhaps even. It's going to be really difficult to see. Number one, it's the middle of the night. Number two, we are certainly continuing to see that it's going to be rain wrapped. Should there be an actual area of rotation, it would likely be rain wrapped indeed. This is going to be just on top of Lincoln, an area of rotation, tracking almost due east. And it has been moving relatively slowly this morning, about 35 miles per hour, and obviously that's relative. Current track on it still has this as moving a little bit quicker now. Maybe it's speeding up just a bit. Weather Service has this moving east at about 50 miles per hour. So let's do this. Let's put a track on it with that new speed. Lincoln now, right? Prairie Grove in the next 5 minutes. Hawkeye at 151. You got a little bit of time there as that continues to track off towards the east. We'll go back into the rotation tracker here. Is there anything else trying to spin up? I'm waiting with bated breath for every scan just to make sure nothing's changing. A little bit of some spin. It's concerning enough that we believe the warning is certainly warranted, but it's not the tightest of rotation. It's not the strongest of rotation, but it is rotation nonetheless, and it may not take much more than that. We'll go back into our debris tracker. Anything checking out? Nope, no debris, no tornado on the ground right now. That's the good news. While we're waiting on new data there, let's do this. Let's back up. For the folks that might just now be tuning in, we have a strong line of thunderstorms moving through northwest Arkansas, pretty much up and down 49. It's going to be impacted by this cell in the next hour. Benton County, Bentonville, Rogers, Avoca, Little Flock, you're going to be impacted by those strong winds up to 70 or so miles per hour pretty much now. With that said, there's no rotation right now with that section of the cell. The only area of rotation is in Washington County. Here's Lincoln. Fayetteville is not included in this cell. The U of A is not included in this tornado warning. Just to the south is likely where we would see those concerns. Back up towards the south along Interstate 40 along Sequoia County, let's say Webbers Falls, Gore points off towards the west. There's certainly more thunderstorms that are developing, and there's a lot of rain. All of this is going to be swinging towards the southeast, so it is on track to impact the river valley. It's just going to take a little bit longer. Right now, the brunt of these storms, certainly the ones that have the severe warnings, and the only tornado warning that we've got is in northwest Arkansas. So we'll continue to track our river valley impacts just likely a little bit later this morning for us. Current time 1:40. One tornado warning. Western Washington County area of rotation. This storm does have some Doppler radar indicated rotation. Exiting Lincoln, now going to be moving towards Prairie Grove. But I'll tell you, it's not the strongest, and it's just continues to be there. I keep checking our storm spotter reports just to see if we've got anything to pass along to you, and we're really just not seeing anything out there. Not getting any reports doesn't necessarily surprise me. It's the middle of the night. General public probably asleep. It's also dark. Can't see a lot anyways, and broadly speaking, it's going to be rain wrapped. There's really a lot of moisture out there with this cell, and that's often the case when it comes to tornadoes around these parts. It's tough to see them unless you're just in the perfect position, and right now you would have to be pretty much in Prairie Grove looking due west into that heart of their rotation to be able to see that. Not recommending you do that. If you're in Prairie Grove, I really recommend you being in your safe location for you right now. We're going a little bit closer back into the heart of this cell as it continues to track now at 50 miles per hour, a little bit quicker than it was earlier, picking up a little bit of forward momentum. Just for some context, there's Bob Kidd Lake off towards the west side of town. Here's the state park right here, Battlefield State Park. We're closing in on Bill Campbell Road right now, moving towards Mock Street. This is going to be Viney Grove Road. Cameras flashing. We're taking some lightning strikes here at the station, so that's why you're Your screen's probably flashing just a little bit. This storm's getting a little bit closer into broader Washington County. So there's going to be a lot of lightning, a lot of thunder. You're going to hear that. It's going to start waking folks up here. Rotation would be moving towards South Pittman Street there as well. This is Prairie Grove right now. Rotation's on the west side of town. Probably not far from Bob Kidd Lake, in fact, actually. Probably right there is where it would be. You go look at some of the velocities, a couple of different ways. Let's see here. May have picked up a little bit of speed. It may now just be the east side of Bob Kidd Lake. Apple Hill Road, Prairie Grove Lake Road. This is going to be East Apple Hill Road. This is going to be Meacham Road. This is going to be Center Point, Church Road, Hogeye Road. That's where I would expect to see wall cloud, should there be one right now. That's where I'd expect to be some rotation broadly in this area. One of the things I'm noting over the last couple of scans, while it's not the most tightest of rotation, it is starting to kind of come back together a little bit. Earlier, it was just a north-south line, greens versus reds. But when you start to see them kind of wrap in like this a little bit, kind of like what's happening right there, that may be that rotation trying to come back up. Something to watch. West side of Prairie Grove right now. Perhaps maybe just to the west side of town, perhaps the south side there as well. It's so broad, I think both would be fine to say. Look at the radar mode, kind of what's that looking like. It is on the leading edge of that line segment, so you're going to have some damaging straight line winds coming out of that. Let's see how high they are. Let's go right here. It's probably 40 to 50. Yep. Okay, a little bit less there. Nonetheless, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds. At the radar beam level, some of that's mixing down a little bit higher. So certainly some gusty winds, if anything, and that's enough to do a little bit of damage, I'm afraid, for some folks. We'll go back at our radar products, just the rain mode. This is moving towards Greenland and West Fork. This will track likely just to the south side of Fayetteville. And it looks like that warning may have fallen. All the warnings fell off. It probably just expired there at 1:45. I believe that's what happened. Weather Service allowing those to fall off. That's some good news. That's some really good news for us. So right now, we have no tornado warnings in effect. No severe thunderstorm warnings either for a good chunk of the area. This storm at the moment is no longer severe. Let's hope that continues. I think what I'll do here, we'll stay with this just for a little bit longer. And here's part of the reason why. You can look at our cameras area-wide. I can see some lightning from the Fort Smith camera. This is on top of Mercy Hospital. I've got this thing pointed towards the northwest, so minimally, while things are really dry in the river valley, you're going to start to hear some thunder. This one's going to be in Bentonville. I also had this one pointed up towards the northwest. Thunder waking up a lot of folks out there. Some heavy torrential rainfall from downtown Fayetteville looking towards the north. You're not only going to see that frequent lightning, look at this cloud right there. That's the leading edge of our thunderstorm now moving through Washington County. It's moving really quickly there off towards the east-southeast. That would be the leading edge of it. We just happen to get lucky to see that on camera before it pushed off towards the east. Just for some context, here's the old post office, the Graduate Hotel right here on the right side of the screen there as well. You can look into Springdale, and of course we're seeing torrential rainfall. Here's going to be I-49 pointed off towards the northwest from the Holiday Inn. For some context, Tawnytown's going to be over here somewhere. The Sam's Club going to be right over here. That's going to be waking up a lot of folks. So we're just, given the fact that we are in the middle of the night, we'll stay here for a little bit longer just to give some folks some calm in the storm, even though at this point our severe thunderstorm warnings and our tornado warning has really dropped off. This cell over the last 5 minutes has weakened quite considerably. You can notice in McDonald County, Missouri, so just off to our north, that segment of the cell remains severe thunderstorm warned. But for local purposes in the 5 News viewing area, we are no longer under any type of warning. There is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a lot of folks out there. Benton, Carroll, Madison, Washington, Crawford, Franklin, Delaware, Adair, Sequoyah counties. That's going to run until 4 o'clock this morning. That watch is going to be Probably one of maybe a couple that we might end up seeing. I'm not going to be surprised if there's not another one that includes more of the river valley. Unless this thing continues to weaken with time, one of the things I want to point out to you, we'll zoom out quite a bit here and take a look area wide. You can see that thunderstorm complex is now diving more off towards the east-southeast. So a lot of this rain that's back up all the way towards Oklahoma City, all that's going to be pushing our direction with time. Things are really quiet in the river valley. That's not necessarily going to be the case before the morning is over with. We believe that that will likely be tracking our direction, and that is going to give us some flood concerns more than likely. I'm afraid it's going to be tough to avoid at least some localized ponding, some localized flooding simply based off of that radar presentation alone. It's going to be along the leading edge of this thunderstorm complex where those winds get the breeziest, 40 to 50 mile per hour right now, moving through a good chunk of northwest Arkansas. A decent amount of lightning. That's going to produce a lot of thunder that you're likely going to be hearing, and of course rainfall anywhere between 1 to 2 inches on average for a lot of folks. But if we get some training, which looks like very well could be a real possibility for us, you might expect some locally heavier amounts than even just that. Let's do this. Let's work our way up and down that line here real quickly. I do want to take us back to regular programming here in the next 5 or so minutes on Channel 5. We'll probably continue our coverage here online, however, until I'm confident that this cell is in fact weakening. One of the things I also want to point out to you that is some good news for us. This is a really small thing that you might overlook. I'll even come a little bit closer to you so I can make sure I can really clear on this. This is some good news, and I'll explain why this is giving me a little bit more comfort this morning. You see this thin layer of green right here, this thin band of green. That's actually not rain. That's dust and maybe some leaves and generally just dust. It's often just that. That's getting kicked up as outflow from this thunderstorm is racing out from under that storm, which is one of those ways of telling us that it may actually be fanning out. It may actually be starting to weaken, and that's certainly something that could present some good news to us. We go back into Benton and Washington County, certainly some strong thunderstorms. There's no question about that. But right now, nothing is meeting that severe weather threshold. There are, of course, criteria that it's got to meet. It's got to be 1-inch hail. It's got to be damaging winds in excess of 58 miles per hour. And right now, we're not seeing a lot of that. At times, I kind of want to go back and just check that rotation where it was, make sure it's not trying to spin up. We talk about playing whack-a-mole with these types of setups, and that very well could be the case. Rotation, if it's still there, and I'll tell you, gosh, it is super weak. It would be now east of Prairie Grove, about a mile west of I-49 in Greenland. I think we might actually have a little bit of hail here at the station. Let me see if I can't see this. Yeah, we've got some hail here at Johnson. Let's see how big it is. It's about the size of nickels. Nickel size hail out there this morning. So that certainly checks out. That's not severe. That's not what would constitute a severe thunderstorm warning, but some hail nonetheless. Area wide, not finding any other rotation out there this morning. That's some good news. Go back to our rain radar mode. One of the things that you'll notice as I loop this, you go from a really well-defined, crisp leading edge, a lot of dark reds and purples back when, but now as this storm moves in, not only is it not as crisp and well-defined on the leading edge as it once was, even just the colors, we're not seeing as heavy precipitation, as strong as downpours and hail cores as we once were as it moved through. Nonetheless, getting some hail out there. I didn't park under the awning, so I'll pay for that. That's okay, I guess. Some hail continues to move through Johnson, probably a little bit in Fayetteville. South towards Greenland, you're going to get in on the action there. I'm afraid most of it looked to be lower or smaller than the size of quarters, which is what would constitute a severe thunderstorm warning. You can see that really just fizzling. I don't want to say fizzling out, but you can see it losing some organization, kind of losing a little bit of steam as it crossed out of Oklahoma into Arkansas. Nonetheless, strong thunderstorm. If you're just waking up with us this morning, this did produce a tornado back near Tahlequah. That since did produce some rotation in Adair County as well as in Washington County. Thankfully, at least at this point, that rotation has pretty much fizzled out. It's just not there anymore. The severe weather threat is pretty much non-existent, at least as of this moment. No active warnings. Severe thunderstorm watch, of course, does continue. In Benton County, this storm has now, for the most part, pushed off towards the east of Bentonville and Rogers. The worst part of it, anyways. That's going to be impacting folks at Beaver Lake pretty much right now, depending on what part of the lake you're on. Nonetheless, west side of town, west side of Beaver Lake, I should say, east side of Rogers, south of Garfield, you're going to have some pretty gusty winds coming into the area. There's the lake right there. So we're talking north of Hobbs State Park, Prairie Creek along Highway 12 right there. You've probably got 40, maybe perhaps as high as 50-mile-per-hour winds coming out of that cell. Looks like Garfield, this is going to be looking at the Springfield radar, but Garfield may be having a little bit higher winds, maybe trying to push through that neck of the woods as that line continues to move through. At that point, you're kind of looking out at the Springfield radar. It's a little bit high up. Beam is going to be quite high, so that data may not be as precise as perhaps if we had a little bit better of a vantage point. Unfortunately, that's just the reality in Benton County. You kind of keep going back to this, and the reason I keep coming, this is near West Fork. Not ready to end our coverage just yet, and the reason why this is kind of sticking out to me a little bit. Broad area of rotation now on top of West Fork. It's not enough to produce a tornado warning, but it's an area of rotation nonetheless, and that is giving me a little bit of pause. So before we end our coverage on 5 News and or on streaming, I want to just see a few more scans with that cell right there. A little bit of rotation on top of West Fork. 49, here's 71. Now this would be the east side of town. We'll go in a little bit closer. Again, I just want to be clear, there's no active tornado threat with this, no active tornado warning. I'm just seeing something I want to just take another close look at here real quick. Some broad rotation. Really broad, it's really weak. In of itself, that would not constitute a tornado warning. It would not constitute any reason to be concerned. Just given its history, I didn't quite want to let go of that just yet. Okay, Cody up in the booth, let's do this. Let's take Channel 5 back to regularly scheduled programming. We're going to continue our coverage over on 5 News Plus, Facebook, YouTube, and our free mobile app on your cell phones for a little bit longer. If there's nothing severe, at least that's the case right now, you don't have to stay up with me all night long, but I'll stick around on streaming for a little bit longer if you want to join us as our coverage continues over there. But for the time being, we'll go ahead and send Channel 5 back to regularly scheduled programming. Cool. As quickly as that escalated, it actually kind of diminished just as quickly. And I hate that it did escalate. I hate that your NOAA weather radios did wake you up, and I hate that your phones did wake you up. Well, I'm happy, actually, to be quite clear. I'm happy that's what happened. That's what's supposed to happen when these warnings were issued. I'm just sorry that for a lot of folks, it kind of fizzled out, which I guess if you're going to have to complain about something, that's not something we're going to complain about. Nonetheless, a lot of folks are awake this morning early, and right now there's nothing severe. So if you want to go ahead and head back to bed, I think many folks are probably fine to do so. We're going to continue tracking this as it progresses through northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. It's going to be a little bit longer before these storms roll into the River Valley, but they certainly will. Got some rain and some storms right now moving through Sequoyah County, entering northwestern Crawford County. A lot of this pushing off towards the east. Nice little outflow boundary out ahead of it tells us it's weakening. You can see some other signs of weakening. Number one, it's not as organized as it once was. That line's not near as pronounced. It's not as crisp along the leading edge. You're starting to see more yellows and oranges as opposed to dark reds and purples. All of those things kind of tell us, yeah, this thing's kind of weakening, and that's continuing to be the case as it moves through the area. Good soaking rain moving through. So that's going to be good sleeping weather for a lot of folks. And nonetheless, a decent amount of lightning, thus you're probably hearing a lot of thunder out there as well. And that's not going to necessarily let up really anytime soon. I would expect that to be the case overnight here. I want to check something from the Weather Service. They're sending me a note here. Everything is trended down. Severe weather chances not expected to increase the rest of the night, but certainly continue across eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas. Flooding is going to be a concern. I really look back off towards the west, and that does give me a little bit of concern. Number one, you kind of see these flood warnings already north of OKC. All of that is quickly surging our direction. You can see how it's moving more east-southeast. That's going to bring a lot of that rain along I-40, perhaps a little bit off towards the south. Perhaps I would say even LaFleur, Scott, portions of Sebastian County may get some of this activity that's developed off towards the southwest. Kind of depends on what angle of approach it takes, but a lot of this is now moving into the area. A lot of it, even if we don't get the leading edge of that heavy stuff, you're going to have a steady light to moderate rain nonetheless. That's currently in north central Oklahoma. That'll be backfilling behind everything that's moving into the area right now. So going to have some flood concerns out there. There is a flood watch in effect for northeast Oklahoma and northwest Arkansas. It's not in effect for the River Valley, but I'll tell you, that doesn't mean we still might not get a little bit of flooding out there. We'll go back into that West Fork cell that we saw a little bit of rotation in earlier. Again, it wasn't enough to constitute a warning. It wasn't enough to really even constitute any concern out there, but I actually still kind of see it. There it is, pretty easy to pinpoint. It's really broad, really weak. So here's going to be the town of West Fork right here. Near McGee Road right here. This is going to be Mineral Springs Road, Green Road. So we're talking the northeast side of town, just to the east of State Highway 71. It's a little broad rotation, generally speaking, in this vicinity. That's going to be McKean Avenue, Stanley Avenue, just to the south of Mineral Springs Road, right in this broad area right here, this community. Looks like that's probably a subdivision right there. That's where I would expect maybe some really broad rotation. Again, not enough to even constitute any concern at all, but just letting you know there's just a little bit out there still. So we'll say here at the station, Danny's going to be in a couple of minutes. We'll keep a team here overnight, and if something does try to pulse back up, of course, we'll join you right back here on television as well as on our streaming platforms. But right now, it's just some weak general rotation that I wouldn't even be too concerned about. If that's happening right there, of course, it's going to be in the thick of all that heavy rainfall, so you just wouldn't see a lot. Fayetteville's getting a good soaking downpour. Probably had a little bit of hail move through just a few minutes ago. I stepped out on our back porch under the covered awning, right? They had a little bit of probably nickel-sized hail coming out. The station's going to be right in this general vicinity, so that's where that probably fell through. Springdale probably got in on the action there. We can take a look at the hail tracker and see what it's suggesting. And yep, right there is exactly where that little hail would be. This has it estimated. This will be a good test to see how good of a job it's doing at estimating it. Penny size, that's actually probably pretty close to what I saw out there. Of course, it's kind of dark, kind of tough to see. Sometimes we talk about these hail sizes, and we'll say quarters, and we'll say nickels or half dollars or ping pong. That rarely means all of the hailstones are that big. That often means there's a variety of different sizes of hailstones, and sometimes the biggest are just what we call out, just to be giving us the maximum potential. A lot of this pushing up towards the east. I'm feeling better about it. I'll be quite honest. I'm not seeing a lot of organization with this. It's losing steam with time, quickly actually. When you loop this, let me do this. Let me just do a 1 hour loop. Goodness, that thing is just really, really hitting a wall. And we love that. We really love that it's weakening as it moves in. It's going to be a good night to sleep for a lot of folks out there. Good sleeping weather. If only you had a good tin roof to listen to that rain hit. That'd be some really nice weather. Looking back towards OKC, goodness, all that's just organizing into a big old blob of some intense heavy rainfall. Tulsa's going to continue to see the consistent rain. That's all moving our direction too. We'll do this. Here's the thing, folks. Nothing severe out there. This is a good thunderstorm. You're probably hearing the lightning, you're hearing the thunder. But in the absence of a warning, in the absence of severe weather, and in a lot of the fact that things are weakening really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Right now, there's just nothing to be concerned with. I think a lot of folks are probably going to be in fine shape to go ahead, head back to bed. I think we're going to be in good shape. If something changes, we're going to be here for you. We'll send a push alert to your mobile phones. You'll get the alerts, you'll get the warnings, but I think we're going to be in good shape probably the rest of this morning. Maybe something tries to pulse back up. It's not out of the realm of possibility. There is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect. Let me show you that before I send you back to bed. That watch does include all the counties here in Pepto-Bismol pink. That runs until 4 o'clock this morning. Franklin, Crawford, Sequoia, Adair, Delaware, Benton, Washington, Madison, Carroll counties. This is where the severe weather potential will continue for the next 2 hours, although I'll tell you it's weakening quickly. We're kind of running out of time, right? Can't say that enough. Hoping it gives you a little bit of comfort to go back to bed and that you'll be in fine shape. We'll keep tracking these storms and join you back here if we have to. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and end this stream. And if you need to check back in with us, you'll know where to find us. But right now, I'm feeling pretty good. So we hope you guys have a good rest of the night. Hope you get a few hours of sleep before that alarm wakes you up. Could see an additional round of severe storms again later this afternoon.